Hi, welcome to Machine Learning. I'm Jordan Boyd Graver, and I'm really looking forward to this course. The reason that you're watching this as a video is that I'm using a flipped classroom where I'll record the videos ahead of time and then you'll watch the videos ahead of when we meet together in person. And then we'll not waste any of our precious class time on lecture, but instead you'll be able to ask questions, we'll be able to work through examples, and we'll be able to make more efficient use of our time when we're all together, so that if you have issues with homework, we can work through them and make use of all of the great technology we have here at the University of Colorado. So I'm not going to talk about content in this video. Instead, I'm going to talk about some of the Administrivia for the class. So it's still important that you watch this, but if you really want to get into the meat of machine learning, watch some of the later videos and come back to this. Here we're just going to be talking about the setup of the course and some of the tools that we'll be using. So first, what kind of student is this course designed for? So there's two broad categories of requirements that we're going to be using. One are the technical tools, and then we also have some mathematical tools, both of which are very important. So on the technical side, we're going to use the programming language Python. So if you're not familiar with Python, you need to learn really quickly because I won't be doing a lot of hand-holding for Python. We'll be using some in-class examples to work through some of the technical tools that we'll be using. So it does help to bring your laptop to class because class is not going to be used for a lecture. It's going to be used for interactively working through problems and examples, so please do bring your laptop to class. We'll also assume that you are going to use a Unix-like command line. So if you have OS X or something like that, you're all set. If you're using Windows, I strongly encourage you to use something like Cygwin or use a Linux virtual machine so that you have access to the Unix command line. Folks have been able to do just fine not using that, but I'll be able to help you more readily if you're using a Unix-like environment. So that's all I expect in terms of the technical background. In terms of the mathematical or conceptual background, I'm going to expect you to be able to prove things rigorously. So if you've taken a course like algorithms or discrete math, we'll be using those sorts of proofs in the middle of the course. We'll also be using multivariable calculus, so you should be able to take integrals, to take derivatives of multivariable functions. We won't do anything too complicated, so it'll just be logarithms and exponential functions. We won't use any really fancy calculus, but I will expect you to know how to take a gradient. And going back to the technical skills, you must know how to program, manipulate text data files, but the algorithms are relatively simple to implement, even though conceptually they're fairly advanced and nuanced. So as I said, this is going to be a flipped classroom. My responsibility will be to record the lectures before class, and then your responsibility is to then watch those lectures so that you can come to class ready to ask questions and to be interactive. And so once you get to class, we'll work through examples. I'll help you with issues that you're having with the homework. And to make sure that you've watched the lectures, I'll do a couple of things. One, I will randomly call on you to ask if you have a question. So if you don't want to be embarrassed and if you want to make sure you have a good participation grade, make sure that you come to class with questions. Secondly, I will have random quizzes that will test your understanding of the lecture associated with that day of class. I usually will not announce this ahead of time. This will allow me to keep track of participation and attendance. So there will be random quizzes. You cannot make the quizzes up. Don't even ask. There will be lots of quizzes, however, and I'll drop the lowest grade. So if you miss some quizzes, that's fine, so long as you do well on a majority of them, it won't affect your grade. And the quizzes themselves will be really easy. If you watch the video, you'll have no problem. So some other Administrivia stuff that I'll mention now. There's a course web page. It's linked to off of my web page that you can get to from boydgraber.org. You should be able to reach all of the relevant materials for the class from that web page. I'll link to the discussion board, the videos, things like that. This course will have a number of homeworks. The homeworks are the most important part of the class. It will allow you to understand the concepts. There are 5 late days that you can use without asking. You don't need prior permission. Use the late days however you want. You can use 5 late days on a single assignment. You can use 1 late day on 5 assignments. You don't have to ask. Just use them. No problem. In addition to the homeworks and the quizzes, which I already talked about, there will also be a midterm and a project. The midterm will be about 2/3 of the way through the course and will be cumulative. We'll talk more about that once we get a little bit closer, but the general format for the midterm is there will be multiple choice questions and then some free response questions. The multiple choice questions will be very similar to the questions that get asked on the quizzes, and the free response questions will be very similar to the exercises that we work through in class. At the end of the course, there will be a project. The project will be team-based. Everyone will be working towards the same goal. We'll have one problem that the entire class will work on. You'll work together in teams to solve this problem as best as possible, and there will be a competition to see which group does the best. If you have special needs in terms of accommodations, in terms of religious observations, in terms of learning needs, or in terms of physical access, please do let me know at the beginning of class in the first week of the semester so that we can make sure that you're taken care of. There's a lot of other Administrivia that I won't bore you with in this video, but please do read the syllabus. In particular, I often get questions about the grade breakdowns or policies on lateness beyond the late days. All of that is covered in the syllabus. Please do look at that syllabus so that you're aware of that information. In the course, we'll be using a book called Foundations of Machine Learning. I really had a hard time choosing a textbook for this course. There are other recent books that have come out. I really struggled to find a good book that was comprehensive, didn't have a lot of errors, and was relatively recent. And this book is not perfect. It doesn't cover everything that I will talk about in this course, so I'll be supplementing readings from this book with papers and tutorials that other people have written. We have a slightly different focus than this book. This book is very, very theoretical. We'll be a little bit more practical than this book. So don't let the theory in this book scare you too much. We will cover the theory, but it will be balanced by practical considerations as well. We're going to use a system called Piazza to manage the communication for this course. It's linked to from the course webpage, or you can use this link here. I will try to answer all questions within a day, hopefully sooner. But you can also answer questions asked by other students, and you can earn participation points for doing so. You can also use this platform to send private questions. So if you only want it to be sent to me or the graders, you can use Piazza to do that. However, think carefully before you ask a private question. Many questions in the past actually benefit the entire class or could be answered by other people in the class. So basically, as long as it isn't giving away an answer or asking something that's very specific to you, most questions should be public because other people can benefit from the answer, and also maybe someone else can answer the question better or faster than I can. So when you ask for help, I encourage you to follow these steps. So when you ask for help, explain what you're trying to do. So oftentimes, people will just put an error message and send that off to me and say, what's wrong? And I don't have enough context to really help. So first, whenever you have a problem, particularly a technical one, make sure you explain what you're trying to do. Another thing that is more difficult, but very, very important, is to give a minimal example. So oftentimes, you've written a very long, complicated program, and you're trying to figure out what's going wrong, and you send me an error message. If I can't reproduce the problem easily, it will take me much longer to respond, and maybe I won't be able to figure out what's going wrong because I can't see the same things that you're seeing. So any problem that you have shouldn't require any data, information, or code that only you have. So your question should be entirely self-contained, and ideally, I should be able to execute a series of Unix commands to precisely replicate the problem that you're having. And you also need to make sure that you explain what you think should happen, because sometimes what you're seeing isn't a problem at all. So you should explain what your expectations are and how what you're getting doesn't satisfy those expectations. And so also explain clearly what you got instead. Screenshots or copy and paste of error messages are great, particularly when they're coupled with a minimal example, because then I can do exactly the same thing and see what's going on. And also, it helps to explain what else you've tried. It shows that you put in a good faith effort to try to solve the problem on your own, and I'm much happier to help people who are really putting in a lot of effort rather than people who just try something, give up, and then start asking questions. So hard work is rewarded. So on the first day when we're all together, we'll do some brief introductions for the whole class. But let me tell you first a little bit about myself. So I'm a first-year assistant professor at the University of Colorado. My office is right upstairs in the CS building. For the past 4 years before coming to Colorado, I was a professor at the University of Maryland. I research mostly at the intersection of machine learning and natural language processing. I work on topic models, question answering, and machine translation. This is my third time teaching a course like this. However, it's the first time that I've used Python. In the past, I've used a programming language called R. Please bear with me if there are issues with the homework in terms of the Python templates or things like that. There may be bugs that creep in. This hasn't been tested for many years. Please do use Piazza to ask questions if you see something weird or funny with the Python code. I was actually born in Colorado, about 40 miles due west of here. However, I actually grew up in Iowa in a small town called Keokuk. I then went to a boarding high school in Arkansas, did my undergrad at the California Institute of Technology, then grad school at Princeton in New Jersey. I had some brief jobs in between, working on Google Books in New York and creating an electronic dictionary in Berlin. But mostly my life has been in academia. One thing that often trips people up is my name. So on the course listing, you likely saw that this was being taught by Ying. So that is my legal name. However, even though that's used in a small number of things in the Colorado system, I don't actually go by that name professionally, so I only use that in my family life and on my paychecks. So I actually go by Boyd Graber. So that's what I publish under, and that's what most people know me as in the university. That being said, I don't particularly like the name Boyd Graber. It's what I was born with, but I liked it so little that I changed my name to Ying legally. That's because you can make fun of my name very easily. So in high school, I had the combination of my parents' nicknames, and so my dad's nickname in high school was the Little Grabber. His brother, my uncle, was the Big Grabber, and my mom's nickname in high school was Tony the Body. So you can figure out what my nickname was in high school. I didn't like that very much. So thus, please call me Jordan. I don't like Boyd Graber. I use it professionally. It's easy to Google, and so in that way it's nice, but I don't particularly like that either. Ying, I only use in my personal life, so don't call me that either. So please call me Jordan. Some people have trouble being informal and using my first name, so if you don't like that, you can call me Professor Jordan or just Professor. You can also call me JBG. I answered to that, and that's actually what I asked people to call me in high school. But anyway, call me Jordan. That's what I prefer. If you're comfortable with that, great. That would be my first choice. Okay, so enough about me. What this is really about is machine learning, and so please do continue to watch at least the next video so that we can have a nice discussion about what the class is about